What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tsla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward, talk about other factors out there, and how you should be looking at the charts going into tomorrow. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon, in just about 5 days from now. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the markets. So, looking at SPY, we're on a very, very nice uptrend so far, continuing to make higher highs and higher lows. But there's one issue I'm seeing with SPY, and that's the fact that we're hitting some very, very tough resistance, and we haven't been able to crack past that quite quickly. So if anything, we're more like range bound right now between these very, very tight levels. And that's going to determine what's going to happen going into tomorrow. So I want to talk about what this could lead to, some very, very important levels and what I see developing. But let me first talk about some data. Just know that for today was a very, very flat day for the markets. We saw Microsoft very flat. Meta was somewhat in the red alongside Amazon, many other big tech stocks like Tesla. But for the most part, the market was flat like a pancake. Now, going into tomorrow, it's going to be Friday, December 27th, 2024, the last Friday of the year for trading. So very, very crazy stuff. In fact, it's the last Friday of the year in its entirety. So very important day. But just know this, there's nothing too crazy in terms of data. We just have some wholesale inventories data coming out in the morning before market open. Besides that, it's all very, very minor. Now, for more data, just know that the fear and greed index is currently at fear. It's not extremely fearful and not neutral. It's just stuck in between, not really doing a whole lot. So we'll have to see how this develops as time goes on. We'll see if the market becomes more fearful or less, but we're just stuck right now at this place. Right now, momentum is neutral because the market did make its way back up, but instead of getting a breakout in either direction, we're very flat. That's why we're at neutral for the time being. The put to call option ratio is also dipping a little bit. This is getting back to fear. We're no longer in a very, very crazy place. We are starting to see it dip a little bit as just some puts being closed as the market's beginning to chop around. So there's a little bit of a shift there. Investors are not shorting the market like crazy right now. They're not buying into it like crazy. They're just slowing down and just waiting to see what's about to happen. The VIX is holding support now. So we're going to be watching to see if the VIX is about to bounce or not. That's also going to be very key for how things end up developing. So watch for that very, very carefully. For other factors, just know that as far as our earnings week goes, there's nothing crazy coming out for this week or next week. We're in a very, very quiet period because of the holidays. Now, for the last Friday of the year, we'll see what they try to pull off. Just know that we have a very balanced put to call option ratio, which is very ironic. It's very rare. Most of the time, we see a lot more puts than calls expiring for most Fridays. But this time around, for tomorrow being December 27th, we have a little bit over 360,000 of these calls expiring, and we have almost 370,000 of these puts expiring. So very, very close numbers with a 1.02 put to call ratio. We have 596 being max pain. As of right now, it's very, very balanced. So as a market maker, if I was the market maker, if it was me, I would try to get the market to close kind of flat when you have this much of a balance, but that could change depending on the 0-day option expirations. So I think what's going to happen is this. I think we're going to see a lot of chop tomorrow because of how balanced the options chain happens to be. But we're going to start off with a small dip. I think there's going to be a small dip looking at the way this is turning and the fact that we weren't able to really hold above 602 for the start of the day. So look for a small dip. We might be retesting 598.9 to 598.65. That's going to be close to our 50 EMA. If SPY loses 598, we're looking for 597.64. If that fails us, we could be dumping all the way down to 595. So keep those levels in mind. If we break past 602 and we start breaking the high of the day from today, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to 603. That's previous support becoming resistance. And if that breaks, I'm looking for 605. So watch those levels very closely. If we're bullish, we want to break the highs to go to 603 to 605. If we're bearish, you want to see it lose 598, and then we'll eventually start dipping closer to like 595. What do I think is going to happen? Well, my prediction is this. I think we're going to dip a little bit to about 598. They may dip it a little bit lower, then buy it back up, and we might just see a lot of sideways choppy price action in a range. For the most part, between 597 and the low 600s, just going sideways for the most part. That's all I'm kind of like seeing for tomorrow. Unless we end up losing 598 and we can't get bought back above it, I see a lot of sideways price action. Why do I say that? Because there's so many options expiring, so there might not be a whole lot that's happening, but we'll see if we break resistance or not. That's what I'm anticipating, at least for the start. We might see more volatility next week, but they may give us a bit of a slowdown. On ES, if we break 6100, we're looking for 6125 as our target. It's very close to where this previous support becoming resistance happens to be. And if we end up losing 6061, we're looking for a dip back down towards 6040. My gut tells me we're range bound between 6060 and 6100. So look for a dip to 6060, maybe a bounce and a lot of sideways price action for now. That's going to likely be the most likely possibility. There might be a lot of sideways price action within a range, so watch and see if that ends up being the case. I might be continuing to see ES stuck between 6100 and 6060. I think that's the most likely case, so look for a dip followed by a bounce and a lot of sideways price action that might chop the market around a lot because of all these option expirations, because of how balanced everything seems to be. Now, max pain is at 596, so in case we don't hold 598 on SPY, there could be a dip, a bigger one, but that depends if we lose support or not. I think we dip a little bit and just trade sideways, but we'll see if support holds. We'll have to be watching that just to be safe. For other factors out there, we have Nvda. Nvidia is very flat right now. It's just shuffling around this 140 area. There was a possible left shoulder ahead and then a right shoulder forming. So we'll be watching to see if we continue this shuffling. If we lose 138, excuse me, we're looking for essentially 136.8. If we break past 142, we're looking for a push higher. My gut tells me we're going to be looking for a small dip tomorrow morning. So 138, a bounce, a lot of sideways price action around 140, similar to what we saw from today. I think we're going to most likely just be range bound. I'm not really seeing much of a direction here. I think it's just going to get tighter and tighter. Unless we lose 138, we turn a lot more bearish for 136.8. And if that fails us, we turn even more bearish. If we break 142, we turn more bullish. Otherwise, we're just stuck in the middle. I think we're going to most likely be stuck. For Bitcoin, Bitcoin has a double bottom-like structure here. I do want to call out some weakness I'm seeing because it hasn't been able to hold above its EMAs, especially around that 96,885 area at the 20 EMA. So because we're losing our 20 EMA as well, there's going to be a risk of us dipping all the way down towards 94,200, back down to that imbalance. That's going to be the most likely case in my opinion. Looking at Tesla, we could be forming a very nice looking cup and handle-like structure, but this is looking like it's going to dip a little bit more first. We might be retesting 450 to 447, and we'll see if we bounce off that or not. So look and see if we get a small dip here to about 447, and we'll see if we bounce. Look for that potential move to the downside, and we'll see what happens after that. So I'm looking for a retest of 447. Hopefully we hold this and try to rebound. Otherwise, there's going to be that risk of downside. For NQ, we had a high here. We came down at a lower high, so it makes me suspect that we might be dipping to about 21,870. I anticipate a little bit of a dip there, and we'll see if we bounce or not off of that. If not, there's going to be a risk of us dipping all the way down to about 21,680. So watch and see if we get a small dip. Otherwise, this is going to continue to push. I think we might dip a little bit more for 21,843 tomorrow morning. And then I think we bounce. We just trade very sideways in this range. So the range between this low here and this high. Look for a dip and a lot of sideways price action as the most likely case. Unless we lose support, unless we lose 21,800, we turn more bearish. Unless we break past 21,100, we turn more bullish. But for now, it looks like we're just stuck in the middle, coming down here to this support at our 20 and 50 EMAs, around 21,870, and then we bounce and just trade sideways for now. For the QQQ, same thing. I think this might dip a little bit, but at the same time, it's quite resilient. It's still holding up quite well, but there might be a small dip coming towards 526 to 527. We might dip here, bounce, and just continue to trade sideways between 526 and 530, going back and forth and back and forth. Now, if we were to break 532, we're looking for a push towards this imbalance around 535, but I don't really favor that. I think we're just going to dip a little bit to about 526, bounce, and just trade sideways between 526 and 530 for the most part, going back and forth and back and forth. I find that to be the most likely possibility, so watch that just to be safe. For Aapl, we're on a very, very nice uptrend, but there is one concern I do have, and that is when you look at this, we have a potential. Let me just delete this real quick. I don't know why that got there. Anyways, we have a potential rising wedge that's been developing. So that does lead to some concerns by me because the rising wedge could lead to something very, very different. So there's this rising wedge here as we're making higher highs and higher lows, but just be careful because if we can't crack past 260, there could be a rug pull back down to about 255. So you want to be a little bit more careful with the Aapl. We need to break 260 to remain bullish. Otherwise, this could be turning back down towards 257, then eventually 255, just to be more precise. So just keep those levels in mind just to be safe. Anyways, for the rest of these, I just want to say that Netflix pumped quite a bit only to start dipping. So it was pumping approaching Christmas only to turn back down. Why did Netflix dump? It was kind of like a, buy the rumor, sell the news event with the whole performance that was going on yesterday by Beyonce and all, the live streams and such. But I want to say that there's a lot of range-bound price action on this. We like to get bought up around the 900s. We like to reject off the 940s. Same thing happened all over again. Tomorrow, it might attempt to push, but if it makes a lower high here, so if it pushes to like 930 or a little bit below that, then it could be coming back down to 913. So push and a dip is going to be the most likely possibility with a lot of sideways price action. For MSTR, we're also range bound going back and forth here. We're stuck between 352 and then 329.4 as our support, going back and forth between this range. So we could be dipping closer to about 329.4 and trying to rebound, but I see a lot of sideways price action for now. Tomorrow morning, look for a dip for 329 or so, then a bounce back up as we're just trading sideways. I do see that this imbalance may drop it a little bit lower as we're making lower highs here. So look for a test of 329, and we'll see if we bounce off that or not. For Celsius, we're looking a little bit more bullish. We're very resilient. We need to hold above 27.63 for tomorrow. If we do, we're looking for 28.39 as our target, so I see a little bit more upside potential here. For Supermicro, we're looking for 33.4 as our support. If that fails us, we have 32.5 as our main support below here. We'll have to see if we bounce off that or not. I do want to mention that there is something good about Supermicro, excuse me. We have a left shoulder here, we have a head, and then maybe like a right shoulder forming before it tries to rebound. So look for a test of 33.4 tomorrow. If it does not hold, I could be looking for the lower 32s, and then we'll see if we get a bounce off that or not. So watch that very, very closely, and we'll see what ends up happening. For Palantir, we have this resistance around the 82 area, and we have support all the way down here around 70, very close to 77. So I think what's going to happen to Palantir is we dip a little bit more, might be a small dip. We're looking for 80 as support. If it does not hold, we're looking for a test of about 80, the very low 80s. So this 20 EMA is going to slowly trend upwards for like 80.8 or so by tomorrow. So I think we might be testing that, and we'll see if we bounce off that later on. So it might be a small dip coming looking at the 4-hour as we're losing volume. We also have a crossover on the PPO. With the market chopping around, this might drag it a little bit lower before it starts to trade sideways. So be careful, guys. For Rivian, I might be retesting 13.95, not 13.71. We'll see if we bounce off those supports or not. I see a lot of choppy price action. We're only down 0.14% for the day. So it's very choppy, very sideways. There might be a small dip coming as we approach 13.71. For SoFi, we look more bullish. There is this imbalance up here, which is going to take us up to 17. This is breaking out because of bullish news that came out. So as long as we don't lose 16.25, I think we favor 17. I think tomorrow's going to try to break out and go for 17. And it has a very, very nice looking structure. Technically, it is in a sideways trend, but it is looking a bit more bullish for the more shorter term. Despite the bigger sideways price action, I think this might be pushing for this imbalance, taking us up to 17 or so. For others, we have the IWM Russell 2000, which looks a bit more bullish. Small caps are starting to push, which is very nice. We were talking about this inverse head and shoulders in my video yesterday. Now this is playing a game of keep up with SPY and the others. As long as we don't lose 224.21, if we lose that, we're dipping back down to 222. As long as we hold 224.21, I'm looking for an attempt to get back up to 228. Looks a bit more bullish to me, so I'm favoring upside for 228 as our target. Might try to push a little bit. For AMD, I'm seeing a weakness on this. We're going to be looking for a test of 124.69. We got to hold that. If not, we're going to be looking for a dip to about 122.9 or so. So it might be a small dip closer to like 123 to 122.9. If we don't hold supports, just keep that in mind. For ARM, we're rejecting off our 20 EMA. This could be dipping lower towards our imbalance down here. So we need to reclaim 132. Otherwise, we're going to be at risk of coming back down to about the 128 area. So we'll see what kind of reaction we get from there. I do see the risk of some downside. For Coinbase, we have our 200 EMA at 273. We're barely holding support. We're making lower highs here. This makes me suspect we might be dipping to 268, and we'll see if we bounce off that. So look for a small dip to 268 and a lot of sideways price action. I do want to give you guys a warning about that. We have a 226.76 as our support. If that fails us, we're looking for essentially 225. So it might be a small dip on Amazon. We'll see if we bounce off that or not. This imbalance came close only for us to reject, so it might be coming back down for 225. For Meta hit this resistance around 605. Now, there's a possible inverse head and shoulders that could be forming, but I just want to say that it's very sideways right now, and there's a little bit of weakness building. So you want to reclaim 605. If we reclaim 605, we're looking for 610. Break 610, we turn more bullish. If we can't get back above 605 at the very least, there's going to be a risk of this dipping a little bit and getting back down to about 598, then 595. So could go either way, but just know that I am seeing a lot of sideways price action on this. It might chop a lot tomorrow, maybe dip a little bit. It is looking a little bit weaker. I am hoping that this inverse head and shoulders pans out, but we have got to break past at least 605 and 610 for confirmation. We haven't done that yet. So it might be a dip closer to 600 and 598, and we'll have to see what happens from there. For Microsoft, We're going back and forth and back and forth. We have resistance at 438 and 440. If that does not break, we could be dipping to about 436.8, eventually all the way back down to 434. So it might be a small dip to about 435. We'll see if we bounce. We're completely range bound right now, and then we'll have to see what kind of reaction we get. So 435 could be very, very probable. For Google is looking more interesting. We have this tough resistance around this 198 area. If we break that, we're looking for 200. If we can't, there could be a dip. I did call out the concern I had about a left shoulder ahead and then a right shoulder that could be forming. So we're going to be looking for a move back down to 195.5 tomorrow, in my opinion. If that does not hold, we could be dumping back down to 192. So be careful with Google. So watch for a test of 195.5 tomorrow. If that does not hold, we dip even more. GameStop is showing some love. It's trying to uptrend here. We got to try to get back up to 34. Let's see if we could break 33 to get up to 34. If we lose 32, however, we're looking for that gap fill to about 31. So very tight levels, but this does look a bit more bullish looking at the trend. And I could be looking for an attempt to get back up to 34. For AMC, this is on a bit of a downtrend. Unfortunately, we could be looking for a test of 4 flat, not doing the best job at holding up. DJT looks a bit more bullish. We could be looking for an attempt to get back up to 38. As long as we don't end up losing our support, we could be slowly uptrending right up there. For the VIX, we're on a bit of a downtrend right now. We have the support to watch for around this 14.25 area. If that fails us, we could be dipping all the way down to about 13.5, so give that some more time to develop. The 10-year Treasury yield is also dipping a little bit. This is not really affecting the market as much. This is just, it's pretty much just based off like what the bonds market is pricing in. So I'm not too worried about that right now. Yields are going up because of concerns about inflation potentially. And then the dollar is starting to dip here. The dollar is not really affecting the market as it has, for the past couple of months. It's been very, very different because of manipulation and other factors like that. It's also being affected by like inflation and the Fed. So with the dollar dipping, this is contributing to why the market's pushing. But technically, the dollar has not really lost its very, very key 20 EMA. It's still trying to hold that. So if that holds and we get a bounce, that could be bearish for the market. So I'll be waiting for that. So what's my view, guys? Just to be very blunt, I see a lot of sideways price action tomorrow. We might see a small dip in the morning just to start things off. Then we'll see if support holds at 598 on SPY, if not 595. We'll see if support holds, and then we'll see what ends up happening from here. But look for a small dip and a lot of consolidation, at least for the majority of tomorrow. It is going to be a very interesting close. It's going to be the last Friday of the year. And then don't forget that there's a very, very balanced put to call option ratio. So it's not like there's an overwhelming amount of puts expiring. If there were more puts, that would make me like more inclined for like upside. You know how market makers like to squeeze shorts, but we're not seeing it this week, right? Last week, when it was Friday, we saw the market push, see a very, very nice reversal because of all the option expirations. But in this case, we're getting something very different, right? With the put to call option ratio being balanced. If I was the market maker, what I would do is I'd cause volatility in the morning, then shop us around as the day goes on. I am anticipating that we might see a small dip and a bounce, a lot of sideways price action tomorrow, and then they may chop us around going into close. So just be very, very wary of that. That's why I'm personally not going to like trade way too much tomorrow. I might just like take a little bit of time off and just stay on the sidelines for some time, and then be very, very picky with opportunities. Sometimes it's best to do that when you have like very choppy days. Those tend to be like very tricky, especially when they start to hurt premiums and such. So just keep that in mind, everyone. Anyways, so that's it for my video. I'll be back with another update going into tomorrow before market open. Until then, I just want to say I really appreciate you guys so much for your attentions. Please have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. The year is coming to an end. Time really does fly. And I always remind everyone to just enjoy what life has to offer, because, life is very short. We're not going to be here forever, guys. It's very tough for me to say that, but I love to live every single day as if it's my last. And I love to live without regrets, right? Always trying to improve and learn from my own mistakes. And I think that's, there's a lot of things that you guys are doing as well to really improve your own selves. So I just wish you all the best in your own endeavors. With that being said, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a very, very good night, and peace out.